Hello everyone, welcome to Malim Chess Kids. Today I will show the game played by Evgeny and Manuel, and this beautiful game complete in only 25 moves. And let's see how the game play. The game starts with the pawn to e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to c4, and knight f6. Then d3 and bishop to c5. Then c3 and the black play d6. And this type of pattern typically you have the Giuoco Piano opening, and this is a very symmetrical opening for both sides where the position is equal for both sides. So the game continue with a bishop to g5, pinning the knight, and the knight cannot move, and that's why the bishop also attacking the queen if the knight move away. Then h6 to attack the bishop, and now the bishop to h4 continue pin the knight. And in this game the black play a g5 attacking the bishop, which this position give black an edge. Then the bishop to g3. After this continue to attack the knight, and further this pawn at the h pawn can continue to attack the bishop and trap the bishop. So after this move, the black choose to play a6, and after this b4 was played trying to attack the bishop. And here the bishop goes to a7 and maintain the diagonal to attack the pawn at f2. And after this the knight b to d2 was played, and here the queen to e7. So this is the first 10 move, and you can see that the position is equal, or maybe the white is a slightly better. After this the white just go for a short castle, and here the black play h5 trying to push the pawn and attack the bishop. So after this move the black play h4, a very strong move to attack the pawn. And back to this position, if you notice that this pawn is a free, and let's we try capture the pawn with the knight. So if you use the knight to capture, and this will give black the slightly better, because after the pawn h4 and here you notice that the bishop is trapped, and the bishop cannot move to anywhere. If you capture, then the rook will capture you back. So if the white play a bishop capture, and the rook will capture you back. So in this action the black will get a bishop, while the white will just get the pawn. So back to this position, if the white continue to attack with a bishop takes the pawn, then the king can just move to f8 after this, if the bishop capture, then the rook will capture. So at this position, you can see that the white give away the queen and capture back one queen for the 2 pawn. So this will give white a slightly better position. Therefore, h4 was played, and this is very strong move to prevent the pawn to move to h4. So after this, g4 was played, and the pawn is attacking the knight. And here the knight move to e1. The better idea will be knight to g5, and this will give more stronger position for the white, as the white will have attack on the pawn at f7. So in the actual game, knight e1 was played, and after this knight, the black player knight to h7 and preparing to go to knight f8, then knight to g6, and have the idea to attack the pawn at h4, because the queen will also protect the pawn, the knight, if you capture the pawn. So this will be the critical path for the knight to turn, to move backwards and continue attack onwards. So after this move, knight to h7 was played, and then the knight to c2, and now the knight to f8, and the knight to e3, trying to get the position. So now the knight to g6, and here you can see the knight attack the pawn with the queen, while the white only have 1 pieces guarding the pawn. And this is the first 15 move. Then the game continue with the knight to d5 attacking the queen, and the queen just move back to d8, maintaining the attack of the pawn. After this, king to h2 was played. So at this position, another suggestion that the white can play would be a4. Then this will continue to play b5 and attack the knight, and if you capture, then the pawn will just capture it back. So after king to h2, now the knight to capture the pawn at h4, and after capture the pawn, then if the bishop capture back the knight, then the queen will just capture back the bishop and check the king. And now nothing can block the check, and the king is only able to move to g1. Then the pawn to g6, and this will be a checkmate with the queen at h2. And if you capture with the pawn, let's say pawn takes the g3, and you see you can't take, because here there is a long diagonal bishop pinning the pawn, and now this pawn is unable to capture, and this will be a winning for the black. So in order to prevent the queen goes to h2, and if you move the knight, such as knight to f3, and now you can just use the pawn to attack and check the king. For example, after pawn capture and check the king, and the king cannot move away, so the other way is to capture with the rook, and after capture, now you can just use the queen, continue to capture and check the king. And after check, you can notice there's only two places for the king to move. And if your king move to h1, then now you can just bring the king to d8, and this is to prevent the knight to capture the pawn and have the check. So after this move, then you can continue with the rook. So after this move, the black is clearly winning in this position. So therefore, after the knight takes the pawn, the white cannot capture the knight. And if you capture, the white will be winning the game. So after this move, the white go for capture the pawn, and this is one of the great move and a great sacrifice. And let's say if you take the queen to capture back the knight, then the bishop will just capture the knight. And here you give white a better position. So after this move, the black can just go for a passing. So after the knight check, the black play king to f8. And after the knight just capture the rook, and now white is clearly better in this position by winning a rook. So here the knight continue to play knight to g6, and now the idea is to push the pawn and continue to attack, and you have the rook to open up the file and check the king. And here the rook to h1 was played. So at this position, this move gives black the better position and a decisive advantage. So the correct move after this move would be playing a king to h1, and this is one of the narrow route to win for the white. So for example, if you push the pawn to h4 continue attack, you can just move your bishop. If the black pushing by playing a g3 to attack the bishop, and here you can just play a queen to f3, and here you have the checkmate by capturing the pawn at f7. Therefore, if you capture the pawn or capture the bishop, then the white will win with a simple checkmate, queen takes f7. And back to this position, if you play something to block the check, such as a knight to f4 to block the direct attack, now the pawn will just capture the g3 pawn, and here the bishop is attacking the empty space. The king is in the h1 and there is no direct attack. So after the pawn capture, and then you can use the queen to capture, and in this position you can see that the white is winning a rook in this position. So you have a 1 2 3 4 5 6 pieces versus 1 2 3 4 5 pieces. So back to this position, if you move the king to g1, then this also will just give white, the black, the better position. To h4, then the bishop back to h2, and now the pawn to g3, and this bishop will be trapped. And the difference here is that if you now move the queen to f3, here you have the pawn to capture and check first. After check first, if you capture with the king, and now the knight will just goes to f4 and block the direct attack. And here the differences is that the pawn have a check and able to capture the bishop, and this gives black the decisive advantage in this position. So in the actual game, rook to h1 was played, and after this the black continue to play h4 to continue to attack the bishop, and here the black is clearly winning in this game. So after this move, the king moved to g1 to escape from the attack of the direct attack. So after this, the pawn just, because this pawn still cannot capture it, as it's being pinned by the diagonal bishop at a7. So after this move, the black is winning, and here the rook just capture and get a check, and now knight just capture it back. So after this move, the king move to f1 to prevent the direct pin from the bishop, and here the queen goes to h4, and here you have the idea to attack the pawn, and also queen can goes to h1 and check the king. So after this move, the king goes to e2, trying to prevent or move away, and here the white also trying to play queen to h1 to capture the queen and go for the exchange, and if the queen move away, you're able to capture the knight and check the king. So after this move, knight g6 was played, and after this knight move, the idea is to come to f4 and continue check the king. So after this move, the white just capture the pawn, and with this capture the pawn, if the knight check the pawn, the white thinks that it can able to capture the knight. But in actual game, after the knight come to f4, and this is one of the great move and a great sacrifice, because after capture this, the white resign the game. I give a couple of seconds to figure out how this continuation of the white to play. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the moves. After the sacrifice of the knight at this position, you can see that if you capture with the pawn, then you have a queen to f2, and this will be a very nice checkmate of the king in the center of the board, and nothing can prevent the check. So if you move away the king, such as you move the king to f1, then you have a queen to h1, and this will be a back rank checkmate. As you can see, again, there's nothing way for the white to escape. And if you move the king to e1, then now you can just use the queen to capture the pawn at g3. And here you have the typical idea of the X-ray attack like the Poland made. So again, the king has nothing to prevent the check, and the only way is to move the king to f1, and you have the final mate with the queen at f2, and it was protected by the bishop. So with this, you can see that the beautiful mate is using the knight to f4, and this game is very good sacrifice. And with this, thank you.